What's happening, guys? Coach G's back again, your master mindset creator, empowering men across the globe with the necessary tools to break destructive and compulsive habits, create healthy and passionate habits, and the mindset to sustain permanent change. So let's get into it today. Today we're going to be talking about the count them now, four responses that we have to dealing with fear, change, and crisis. All right? Now, before we get into it, I want to give you guys a little bit of context here. You know, I was doing my daily reading, and I follow one of my leaders here. His name's Cardone. Maybe a couple of you guys know him. And he wrote a book called If You're Not First, You're Last. And he writes a lot of financial books, and I'm reading his book, and the way he opens it up is that he's talking about the four responses individuals and businesses have to like an economic change, why they're not thriving through that economic change. And I looked at that and I'm like, something happens with your money, that's going to put you into a place of change, right? A place of crisis maybe. But also we experience fear. We got a lot that's connected with money. But not only that, we experience fear, change, and crisis, guys, in pretty much every avenue of our life. You get a chance to experience that with your body, with your bonds, with your own personal being, with your business. It impacts every single thing that you have going on around you. Now, these four responses, guys, it's going to be crucial. So I'm going to give you a second. Go grab your pen and paper. Let's get rocking and rolling. All right. That's enough time for you. All right, first response that we got. It's the cheerleader response. That's right, you heard me right. Rah, rah, sis, boom, pa. Right, the cheerleader response. Now, before we even talk about the cheerleader response, let's just talk about cheerleaders for a minute. If you've ever had a chance to go to a game, who do you hear more? The cheerleader, the coach, or the players? Exactly, you hear the cheerleaders. Now, let's take it another step. Who impacts the game? Right, you're looking at the coach, but really the players, right? So the person with the loudest mouth is not affecting any type of change. And that's what we're looking at when people go into that cheerleader response whenever fear, crisis, and change occurs in some avenue of their life. And what we mean by the cheerleader response is that they are just vocal against the change happening, but they don't affect anything that's going around them. Listen, we're in a place right now, it's 2017, and this ain't a political conversation at all, right? But everybody's not exactly happy with how the elections turned out. And here's what I get a chance to see on my timeline feed all the time. Like, hashtag, not my president. Hashtag, bring him back for another 4 years. Hashtag, 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 hashtags. Like, this is hashtag world. Got like 20 hashtags underneath this video probably. But here's my point. The hashtags go out. Everybody's vocal about it. But they're not willing to affect any type of change. You know, I don't want to even say they're not willing to, but it's just that it's just not happening. You know, life still went on for these people. The majority of people who are putting out these hashtags right now, unfortunately, it's just going to be a lot of noise that's going to happen with it until real change starts happening behind it. The other part you got to know about a cheerleader response is that they're just like optimistically in denial. You know, that's just what the cheerleaders do. Cheerleaders look great, right? Like, if you had to say, just as an honest spectator, you know, if you look at the coach, and then you look at the players, and then you look at the cheerleaders, who possibly is going to seem most appealing? The cheerleaders. But how the cheerleaders look has nothing whatsoever to do with the game. The cheerleaders can look great and the team is losing. And let me tell you, that's what we end up doing. We end up creating this image with the cheerleader response that says, okay, cool, this is the direction I'm going to go. Well, you know what? I'm not going to really buy into that. And, you know, I'm going to go out here and put out this image. I was famous for that. You know, a lot of you guys know my story, right? Like, when I lost my wife and my kids, and the reason why is that part of me was always reverting back to the cheerleader response. I dealt with a lot of addictions, a lot of personal issues, and I never really confronted them right. And before I had a chance to really address them, whenever they came up in my household, I was the first one to say, well, let's just all go out to eat dinner. Let me try to buy my wife a new coat. Let me see if I can do this. If I provide this, maybe that allows me to have such a great image, and then I don't have to address the real problem. You see, here's the problem with that, though. When you do that, it leaves you unprepared to handle the crisis. You see, for me being unprepared meant that when I woke up one morning, I found my wife and kids packed at the door. I was, whoa. I'm unprepared for that kind of crisis. And not only that, when you're unprepared for the crisis, your reactions will mimic the crisis. I want you to hear me. When you're not prepared for the crisis, your actions will mimic. Your responses to the crisis is going to mimic the crisis. So what do I mean? Listen, if you've ever, anybody out there that drives, right? And let's just say you was driving in the rain. Anybody ever have the unfortunate incident of like hydroplaning? Right? Now, here's the deal. When you hydroplane, the car immediately just kind of gets, it's just sliding right now. There's no control to the car. And if you react like the crisis, then you end up slamming on the brakes. And for anybody here who, I pray you haven't had that experience, but if you slam on the brakes and you're hydroplaning, you just have that moment of like pure fear, shock, everything's going through you. Oh my gosh, I have no control. But you see, if you flip that and you're prepared for it, well then, hey, you've actually, hey, what do I do? How do I drive in the rain? Okay, what happens when I hydroplane? Pump the brakes. You see, pumping the brakes requires patience. Requires you to have to go through a process. When you're just, boom, hit a patch of water and you go flying out, that's not really a process that's happening there. That's just an automatic reaction to two elements meeting each other. But once you have an opportunity to go ahead and say, all right, cool, let me respond oppositely to that. Pump the brakes, now you're in a better place. But cheerleaders don't do that. The number 2 response that people have to change, fear, and crisis, now stay with me on this, is the old school response. Have you ever had anybody experience something, have a setback in their life, might have been you, definitely used to be me, and you say, I got to get back to basics. That's that line, get back to basics. Here's the problem with getting back to basics. Getting back to basics means that everything in your life goes back to that point when you first started the basics. That's exactly what that means. If you look at a child, right, and you look at a toddler, when that toddler first learns how to move, it's on its knees. It's hand, knee, hand, knee, hand, knee, right? That toddler gets older, all of a sudden it starts walking. And what if you was the parent, looked at that toddler the first time he fell and said, look, it's okay. Go back to basics. Well, he's doing left, right, left. For back to basics, that's hand, foot, knee, hand. However the process goes. You guys know what I'm trying to say. Hand, knee, hand, knee, hand, knee. That's that back to basics mentality. And here's the other problem with back to basics. It doesn't allow you to acknowledge that there's been an actual change that took place in your life. Like, I don't care what's happened where you feel like you got to get back to basics. Everything around you has already changed. And when you go back to basics, you're not going to allow yourself to start formulating new ideas to be able to deal with the new circumstances that are in your life right now. Look, people do back to basics, but you say that, but I want you to think about it in these 3 areas, right? Think about like employment. Think about trying to get a job. I want you to think about your health. I want you to think about your wealth, right? I want you to look at those areas and say, when has gone back to basics really worked? If we had to go back to basics about what our health was, well then, we might be eating like tons of steaks all day long, poor diets, it might still be smoking taking place in public areas, right? Like our health has to suffer by going back to basics. Think about just getting a job. I remember when back in the, I'm not an old guy, but hey, back in the 80s and 90s, right? When you wanted to go get a job, what was the main thing we did? Printed out like a stack of resumes and we went around to every job. It's like, hey, are you hiring? Cool, here's my resume. Try that today. Let you mess around and get unemployed today. And then you say, I'm going to go back to basics to just me getting a job. And you put on your shirt and tie and you get out here. You might find some success. But the reality is, in this day and age, they're going to tell you what when you walk in the door. Oh, well, did you finish your resume with the cover letter? Oh, you didn't? Oh, well, we're going to need you to do that for us. Have you already spoken with somebody? Do you already have an interview set up? You don't? That needs to happen first before you can come in here. Basics doesn't work anymore. Here's the deal. Either A, the basics got to change, or B, you ain't do the basics right in the first place. Either way, it ain't applying right now. Number 3 response. It's the quitter response. The quitter response is when you just simply say, you know what? I'm just going to wait this out. till things get back to normal. I was famous for that whenever me and my wife had an argument. I'm just like, I'm going to let her go. This is all going to ease out soon and things will be back to normal. You see, here's a problem with quitters. At least the cheerleaders are making tons of noise, and the back to basic guys, they're at least doing some kind of action. The quitters are doing absolutely nothing. Here's another way you can identify the quitter piece, right? They love the low-hanging fruit. They take the charity. There's nothing wrong with charity if you're in that position to have to receive it. But the thing about quitters is that they don't ever do an investment. Think about that just like if you try to start a business. Look, I'm going to put myself on blast right now, right? You know, when we look at that piece, I used to try to get everything for free starting out in my business. Heck, when I used to do door-to-door sales and I saw sales stuff, like I was all about trying to find something for free. You ever do that? Like just click on one of the Facebook ads and you get the free webinar, you get the free download. But it's no real investment, and everybody here knows that we're not going to really get that real information until we make a real investment. Quitters never make a real investment. Now, before I go into the fourth response, I want to just give you one thing about the first three. You see, here's a problem with the first three. If you carry out being a cheerleader, the old school guy, or being a quitter, and you respond that way to change, crisis, and fear, what happens is that instead of leaving your family a legacy, you leave them debt and regret. Now, while the words themselves might have an impact, you got to really understand the difference, what that means. When you leave debt and regret, nobody sits around to try to duplicate that. So what does that mean? They work to try to forget you. I mean, think about it. Dad left us $50,000 in debt. We got to get rid of that. Dad did all these horrible things when he was around, and oh, we regret that. We got to get rid of that. There's nobody doing a huddle, and mom is sitting there like, well, okay, you saw your dad put us in bankruptcy, so do you want to, let's practice modeling that. Doesn't happen. But when you get a chance to leave a legacy, that's something you're remembered by. That's what carries you on. That is truly what enables you to survive, to be able to live past this life. Because as a quitter, as a cheerleader, as the old school person, you got to also understand that that behavior is going to affect everybody else around you. You think that it's just you stuck in a situation. That's not what it is at all. Everybody gets affected. So now, let's keep it moving. The fourth response, and this is the response that you guys got to learn to adopt. It is called advance and conquer. That's right, advance and conquer. What does advance and conquer say for us, right? Well, advance and conquer says that we have to be willing, not begrudgingly, not upset that we got to do this. But we have to be willing to adopt a unique set of energy and skills along with mindset, and here's the key part, massive action. Listen, fear, crisis, change, it requires you to adopt a new set of energy and skills, a new mindset coupled with massive action. You just can't wait around. You got to attack it, attack it, attack it. Whatever it is. There are some people out there right now who got diagnosed with cancer. And they're just sitting in the fetal position right now like life is over. There's somebody, I remember the housing boom, right? Or really the crash, not boom, the crash. And people got hit with them balloon payments. Everybody's out there just kind of stuck. They're like, oh man, that's not working, that's not working. I saw people killing themselves over this stuff. You guys remember when the furlough happened with the government? I did door-to-door sales, so I definitely remember this, right? I found so many people at home. They wasn't even getting like the minimum wage paying jobs that were available. Wasn't willing to do anything, but with advance and conquer, you know now, okay, I got to pick up a new skill. Yeah, I was a doctor before, but for what I'm doing, for what's happening in front of me right now, I need to learn something else because that's not working. You got to adopt that. You have to adopt that. The second part that I want to leave you guys with advance and conquer. All right, stay with me now on this, okay? It's going to require you to embrace the fact that change has happened and that it hasn't just happened to you. You see, so often we look at this and think that we're the only ones being impacted by the change, by the crisis, by the fear. But it's affecting everybody around you. So you have to also know that you can't play that special role like woe is me. This is going on with everybody right now. Like everybody has to be in massive action. Everybody got to get a new mindset. Everybody got to get a different set of skills. Everybody has to adopt to all of these changes. You guys have got to get these things down. Trust me, if you don't have these principles down, you will go through 2017 in the most regretful possible way. The last thing, guys, absolute last thing, I'm going to leave you guys with the Advance and Conquer, is that you have to be aware of new opportunities that are going to open up for you. So what does that mean? If you're trying to battle something right now, like an addiction or something, right, and you actually take ownership and say, I'm going to advance and conquer with this, well then you have to understand, when we say new opportunities, it may not look like how it looked before. I mean, again, some of these old models, they're not working anymore. The inpatient treatments is not always working for people anymore. You got to be able to understand, okay, what's the new opportunity that's going to be in line for me right now with this? Does it mean that I can't go to the traditional methods of getting this process done, not the old school methods? Listen, guys, that's Coach G here for you. We are talking about the 4 responses we have to crisis, change, and fear. Any questions at all about this, you want to figure out how to better operate, advance, and conquer in any part of your life, go ahead, look below, hit me up with the contact information that's listed there, and we'll get in touch and we'll make this thing happen for you in 2017. Coach G's out. I love you guys. Keep kicking ass.